Hi folks, this is Abel James, and you are listening to Fat Burning Man, where we talk about real food and real results. If you're just listening to the audio here on the show, and you hear some jingling in the background, it's actually the cows that are right behind me. There's one coming up to me right now. And these are the ones that are hanging out with my folks at our place where I grew up in New Hampshire, and it's been so awesome being back here for a few days, just taking a nice little vacation for the summer. My grandmother, Nan, just turned 91 years old. Happy birthday, Nan. And we ate more than our fair share of blueberry cheesecake this weekend, and it was absolutely awesome. Hey, Rosebud. The cows are coming right up to me. One of the coolest things about enjoying a lot of cheesecake sometimes is using it to your advantage, and I actually learned that you can do that when Allison and I were on a 7-day cruise a few years ago. And basically we were enjoying sweets or desserts, usually high glycemic ones, with breakfast, lunch, sometimes dinner as well, ordering multiple entrees. And it's, good for the soul to do that from time to time. It's good to indulge. And if you treat it like a building phase, then you actually don't necessarily sacrifice your health at the same time. At least you mitigate the effects. So what I do, and what I'm doing right now, is basically if I'm on vacation and I'm relaxing and I'm drinking more than I usually do, or I'm eating more than I usually do, then I'll do heavy lifts, strength training, full body, 2, maybe even 3 times a week. I'll also go running, which I don't tend to do as much anymore, but it's great to be more active than you usually are if you're overeating. The opposite of what most people do when they're on vacation. So whenever you eat sugar, like I did this weekend, you get sugar cravings and they stick with you. So being knowledgeable of that in advance is really, really helpful if you want to not fall off the wagon. So basically what I like to do is have that building phase and then that cleansing phase. And it's really, really important even if you have those sugar cravings, to not go to the grocery store and pick up Chips Ahoy and a big pint of ice cream and the rest of that stuff. Because if you have it around you, you're going to keep eating it. So if you guys are on vacation right around now, or if it's the summertime and you're listening to this, make sure that you're using all of that extra food and all those goodies to your advantage instead of your detriment. And treat it as a building phase and get in the gym or go outside and exercise and have a good time. And then when you get back to your everyday normal life, make sure that those bad habits don't follow you around, and return to discipline. You'll thank yourself. And even if you did gain a few extra pounds over your vacation, it goes away just as quickly as it came on, as long as you're doing the right thing. So that's a little bit of knowledge for today. On this week's show, I'm really excited. I've been talking about this in the weeks leading up. It's with a good friend of mine. His name is Michael Lovich, and he's the co-founder of Real Dose Nutrition. And we're going to be talking once again about supplements principally. After the great response from you guys with FDA Special Agent Gary Collins when I had him on the show a few weeks back. And if you haven't heard that show, definitely go back and take a listen. Still getting some great feedback about that. I wanted to make sure that we dive even a little bit deeper into how a good supplement is made and how bad supplements are allowed to be made and sold as well. And there are too many unfortunately, horrible supplements out there that are basically a waste of your money and even damaging in some cases, as we'll talk about in the show. So coming out of this show, you're going to have not only an understanding of what supplements are and how you can get really good ones yourself, but also what to look out for when to make sure that you're not bamboozled and swindled by some of the other people who are selling what seem to be good supplements, which are actually just, manufactured for cents on the dollar somewhere where supplements shouldn't be made, as opposed to Michael, who's going around the world looking for the highest antioxidant blueberries and turning them into a concentrate and various things like that. So it's a lot of fun, and I wanted to make sure that, now you have not just the special agent, the person who investigates supplement companies, but also a co-founder, someone who started a supplement company from the ground up and is doing the best that he can to make a super high quality product, and making some sacrifices as well to make a super high quality product. So it's a really interesting thing to think about. I supplement myself with, pretty much, I've tried almost everything, and I've tried Real Dose, and it's good stuff. And I'm really pleased to bring Michael to you. So with that, I hope you enjoy the show. If you don't mind, Please share this show with one of your friends, someone you care about who you think might benefit from this information, and leave a review. And as always, you can go to fatburningman.com and sign up for my email list, and I'll send you a free ebook and a free video course and a bunch of other free goodies and recipes. So let's go hang out with Michael. Hi folks, I'm here with Michael Lovich, and he's the founder of an 8-figure supplement company, and he's a good friend of mine. And I this was kind of an impromptu thing, but decided to ask Michael to come on and just rant about his industry a bit, because I get a lot of questions from you guys about supplements. Which ones are good, which ones are bad, which ones are dangerous, which ones are, superfoods or super whatever. And so Michael is someone who always shoots straight from the hip, will answer like pretty much every question with complete honesty, and that's why I consider him a very close friend. So Michael, it's my pleasure to have you here.
I appreciate it. So hope I don't be so honest I get myself in trouble.
You always do. We can always bleep it out and if you start dropping F-bombs or something like that.
My partners were worried. They were like, just don't cuss too much and don't say anything bad about it.
This is a family show.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about your backstory, because it's really cool and overlaps a lot with mine. Actually, we were first introduced by a mutual friend, Leanne Ely of savingdinner.com, to talk about music and the brain, because that was my real interest. And you actually have a big background in brain type stuff and hypnosis as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, just kind of going real fast. I mean, after failing as a special ed teacher, I did what everybody does who doesn't know what they're going to do. Went to grad school in the social sciences, and I got really into the brain and evolutionary psychology and things like that, and ended up kind of doing my thesis on hypnosis, which is looked at as this crazy thing, as a normal communication event. And it turns out there's a lot of science there. So fast forward a couple of years, I started seeing people marketing hypnosis in a very, like, I'm not new age. I'm not into past lives or miracles. They're not true in my opinion. And so I started seeing these people kind of overhyping it, saying things that were impossible. And these people doing it had no pedigree,
right?
Because like hypnosis should be done by a real psychologist well. So out of the blue, my wife got pregnant, didn't want to travel anymore. I took my big risk. It was like 2004-ish, and I said I wanted to bring the best people who did hypnosis into the world, create their audio programs, and be no gurus allowed, because I don't like gurus.
Yeah.
I think people should think for themselves. I hate them. And I think people are susceptible to that, and because I know persuasion, and I try to stop that. So anyway, and I published really good people with realistic expectations, and in a short order, it really blew up. People were getting results, and a lot of kind of well-known doctor types started endorsing it, and fitness guys, and we had a really good weight loss hypnosis program, which wasn't magic. It just made it more likely you would follow a diet. It was diet agnostic.
Yeah.
So fast forward, that did well. And my mom's a physiologist, and she's had me on supplements since I've been like born. She used to sprinkle like wheat germ on the top of spaghetti. So
as moms do. I love that.
She's a Birkenstock wearing physiologist. She read prevention before it was popular, that kind of thing. So I've always had kind of that background more in the family. And I started consulting. A lot of doctors wanted me to help them with their marketing, and no names. And I don't know, as I saw how the supplement world worked, I saw them all like cutting corners, and it was kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
But they cut corners because to create a good supplement costs money. There's no tricks. Anybody with secret magic, cheap supplement it's just not possible. And they said, when I say, hey, put the right stuff in at the right dose, they say, no, nobody will buy it at that price.
Yeah.
Finally, I had a friend who's my business partner now, who had experience in the industry, and he's always wanted to work with me. And I said, I'll do it, but it has to be the best, because I want to see if this works.
Right.
And then we partnered up with Dr. Steve, who's really our voice and our guide. And he liked the idea. And about 3 years ago, we started this thing called Real Dose, which had a promise to be the best. And it's not cheap, but it's effective. And 3 years later, it's done really well. So it worked.
Yeah.
And so that's people. And it does suck, because if people don't have a lot of money, it is probably not the company for them. And there's other supplements that are good.
Sure.
So we are kind of for the affluent, which is a shame, but I don't know any other way around it.
Yeah.
Because for the goals we say they get, we can't make it. And everybody else does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's disturbing, because we have people out there with the same claims, which I know are about a fourth the price, and it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the interesting thing, because it's a bunch of cowboys in this industry right now. And, certainly there are some sorts of regulations, and I know that you guys have pretty much everything that you can, but there are certain things that you should do or have to do that aren't always done, or like people are flying under the radar. Because let's talk about how easy it is to start a supplement company, but how hard it is to actually have a worthwhile supplement. Can you go over from a high level something like that?
Well, the easiest way is like if you go to kind of these shows, there's like shows that marketers go to.
Mm-hmm.
And invariably there's 3 or 4 companies like Private Label X, and I don't say no names, but and they're like contract manufacturers, and they have like, oh, so you want to sell a sex pill? Here it is.
Yeah.
Well, how much is it going to cost me? Private Label, we'll put your label on it. Oh, how much is it going to cost a bottle? It's going to $2 a bottle. That means if I'm paying $2 a bottle, it costs them 50 cents.
Yeah.
Because the bottles cost nothing. It's all about the ingredients. So you can easily just do that, and they'll do fulfillment and everything. Just throw up a website, create a fake review thing, get real good at Google, and now you're selling a sex pill, weight loss pill, PMS pill, whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I want to sell meal replacement powder. Just private label from one of those guys.
Right.
Right. Which is just, so it's that easy, and they'll do all that.
And so it starts at like 50 cents, then it's $2, and then it's marked up to what usually?
I know there's a diet pill company that'll sell their stuff for $139 because they have doctors on there, and they say it's so expensive. It's only so expensive because it works.
Right.
People sell it for whatever, and then that allows them to do what you see. You always see this risk-free trial thing. Mm-hmm. For just the cost of shipping, $4.95, and they send it. Well, that's why they can afford it, because the $4.95 is covering their product and shipping costs.
That's crazy.
So they break even there, and then they'll auto bill you for like $89 normally.
Right.
And all they want you to do is be too lazy to return that first thing. People always cancel, but they just made $89 profit, and then they make it really hard to return. So maybe they get $170. Nobody reorders.
Yeah.
And then they don't really have a location, and it's really hard. And oh no, please call for a ref number, but there's nobody to call.
Yeah.
And then so they just rely on, people are creatures of convenience. We're all busy.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost $89. Screw it.
Right.
And they don't care if they're on rip-off report, because they change their names all the time. So and then they change merchant accounts. So they get banned all the time, but these guys can get merchant accounts overseas. So they're just playing the merchant account company game. Yeah. And they're all over the place. Google tries to stop them. Facebook tries to stop, but they always arise under different brands. So they make money for 2 months, go away, make money for a month, 2 months, go away. So that's the worst of the worst.
So how do you know if that's happening? What are there telltale signs?
Well, if anybody's giving you a risk-free trial for $4.95.
Okay.
And then if there's not really a company location, those are pretty sure tells. But if you can see, and they usually have pictures of like girls with an Abel showing. Right. They're using sex appeal as the beginning thing. It's like kind of tells. It doesn't mean they're doing that. But very few people. But then the problem is there are like some people's products are so good it's worth it. So the problem is, how do you know which one? But you can kind of tell just by the quality. They use stock photos and then the fake review sites. It's like, and then at the bottom of the fake review sites, they always do have to say this is a review site. Yeah. There's one that's really good at the bottom. It says none of these stories are true. Blah blah. Next to that'll be in trouble. So always look at the bottom footer. Yeah. To see the disclaimers. Like none of these doctors are real, by the way, but it's in fine print. So if you go to the bottom on the review sites, you can see whether it's fake or not.
Yeah, and so you guys have probably, I know that I find myself on those all the time just because I'm curious as to what people are seeing, if they are clicking on the banner ads or if they are going through Google or can you explain? I think a lot of people don't realize that these are actually ads, but you go on like CNN.com or you go on a bunch of popular blogs and then it says like stories from around the web or something like that.
The vernacular for that is native ads. So that means they look like the site. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so they fit into the news site. They call it native. Like a Facebook dark post. Like you buy a sponsored post, they call that native because it looks like it's native to Facebook. It's not a banner. A banner's an ad. A dark post, you don't know. It's kind of native. Right. Right. So those are different companies. So CNN, I think they're Outbrain's a company. Yeah. So they provide CNN a service by providing like relational content. CNN can decide to serve their own related story or an advertiser, and then they just split the money. Yeah. So I could pay like $3 per 1,000 visitors to see it, and CNN gets half of it, and the broker takes that percentage. The firm. So they're all over the place, especially like the celebrity gossip sites and those kind of sites. Yeah, well,
celebrity gossip. That's where it usually is.
So they look like you're going to watch a news article, and then you go to something, and then so that's why those fake review sites do well there. Right. Because then those people will try to look like you're going to a news article, so it's a fake news article, and they say it's fake, but like way below.
Right, and it's usually in like gray text on a gray background or something like that.
So then you're thinking you're reading real news because you just came from CNN, from that CNN would associate with, like the AP or something, and wow, this is a reporter who really liked it. She's on the diet beat. Yeah. and then you go to this free trial with the sexy, stock photo girl with the tape measure and the apple.
Right. Okay, so let me walk through what someone might be experiencing when they go online. They go to CNN because they're curious about what's happening that day. They scroll down and they see like a cool related story or whatever. They wind up on this site where it looks like that. Well, it might even be a fake news story, right? That then goes to a fake review site.
Most of the people who kill it, that's what they're doing. Like they destroy us. Like they make a lot more, and they basically they go to a fake news story first.
Right. So it's like a silly picture of a cat, something viral, or it could be something about like, some housewife in Tennessee, and it says like action news for a place that like is probably close to your town because it targets you, and then from that you go to this fake review site, which is meant to trick you into thinking that it's real. You order this product for a risk-free trial, or say that you don't. Maybe it's $47, $97, $297. You get 10 bottles free or something like that. This is what happens when you go through the actual chains.
And then what happens? Yeah, exactly. And then you're on auto ship. And so they're billing you every month, even though it costs them, it costs the manufacturer 50 cents, but it costs them $2, and they're charging you hundreds and hundreds of dollars to give you a supplement that's made of what precisely? Like what? Well, no, it used to be nothing, but it all started with the acai berry back in the day when acai got big on Oprah, and then Oprah sued everybody. But then the problem was, acai berry is bullshit anyway, but then they weren't even getting then they were getting like shitty acai because you can get acai from anywhere. There was no research on that. That went away for a while. Then what happened is Oz started, I don't do names. He's pretty loose. So he'll go, he likes that.
I think we all know that at this point anyway. But he actually, I don't think you've seen this, but right before we recorded, I saw that Dr. Oz is now suing a lot of the people who have been selling supplements, really a lot of supplements, millions of dollars worth of supplements, using his name without his permission, and the rest of it. So he's going after them now too, just like Oprah did.
That's what I could tell an ethical marketer. Like, see, I like regulations.
Yeah.
So I love it. Because all my friends, like internet marketing guys, like, oh, that's bullshit. The government should stay out. I don't know, please. Like, I win every time Dr. Oz does that.
Right.
Because I don't want those people around. Like they make it hard for me to sell. Right. Because people lump us in there. Yeah, but it's interesting how that started. So he would like, Garcinia, and Garcinia has some really good research on it. Right. So he started taking stuff that had some decent research for weight loss. Raspberry ketone didn't. Right. I can't do that.
Yeah. But everyone also, so that's the problem too, especially, and I can relate to that. Like I put out so much content. I put out like almost an hour of content a week just of this show, not in addition to everything else. And I only have so much time to like vet each guest and make sure that everything that they say is supported by the research. And you also have to keep coming up with like new guests, new content. And he's been at this a long time. Not to say that I agree with everything that that he and people who have shows like him stand for necessarily, but I can definitely relate to it's not an easy job, and there are a lot of people who take advantage of that without, especially someone like Dr. Oz and Oprah, like selling the stuff that they mentioned on the show once or whatever. Then for the rest of time, everyone's using their name to sell that junk.
The ketone thing is a good example of where it's not necessarily bad, but you have to be smart. So a lot of potential for that. So there's a good chance it raises adiponectin, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, right? So you went and had the thing about that, but it doesn't have double-blind human. Right. But
can you explain to people what that is? Because there's science and then there's real science, right? Let's just cover that a little bit.
Well, it's theoretical. Like I'm not against the raspberry ketone. It's just how you present it. Right. So if I had a different company, I might even put ketone. There's a lot of potential there. I might put it in there and say experimental weight loss ingredient. Right. Say it as it is. Yeah. A lot of potential there. A lot of great stories. I'm not saying it's bad, but then there's a whole sourcing thing too. So anyway, but yeah, there's a way. So when people make a claim, they can study. It can be in a culture, right? Vitro in a dish. So if we throw this on there, the fat cells smelt. Right. And, that very rarely happens, translates to humans. Right. They can do rats. They can do pigs, monkeys. Obviously, the monkey one's going to be more likely to work in a human, but not always. Or you just study it in humans in a real environment, controlled conditions. So different people have different standards. Like my company, that's where Real Dose, right ingredient Real Dose, we're a double-blind human. That's our thing. When we source ingredients, we don't do the study, but we only have ingredients that have those studies and put them at the dose in the research. So that's our standard.
Yeah.
But there are like, pretty interesting stuff that happens in animals that, again, like I'm an adventure, I'm a junkie of this.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a company people could trust. So I'll only put out stuff under this brand, Double Blind Human.
Yeah.
Do I think people who put out stuff that has good potential in animals or good stories, do I think they shouldn't sell it if it's not dangerous? No, I think that's fine as long as they're honest about it, because I take a lot of stuff that hasn't been double blind human studied. And sometimes, and so I'm not going to tell you only do double blind, you're going to die. It's not true.
Right.
So read the theoretical evidence. Is there a mechanism that makes sense? Does the science make sense that a good chance it'll work on you, and have you heard good stories?
Right.
Why not? But as long as but most people, when they pitch it, they're not pitching it in that way.
Right.
If I ever had a company that did that, which I thought about, it'd be called like humanguineapig.com.
Right.
And then I'd probably like crowdsource. Do they like it? Right. So I have nothing against adventuresome people.
Right.
And we have some friends doing that kind of way of marketing, but he's honest about it for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And I take some of his stuff and I get some results. So again, that's not bad. It's just how it's framed.
So there are different types, and just it's worth me saying, people in my position, we're approached all the time as podcasters, people with big email lists, influencers online. We're approached all the time by supplement companies, good and bad, wanting to throw lots of money at us to support X or Y or Z. And I think in the interest of transparency, sometimes I do sell products that I'm affiliated with my partners. I can tell you that with Michael and Real Dose, we've never done that. I'm not affiliated at all. I'm not getting a kickback or anything like that. I do believe that Michael does great work and that Real Dose is a good brand. I take it myself, and it's kind of like it's a very safe type brand. We can talk about this a little bit later, because there's the more adventuresome stuff, and I'm all about the human guinea pigging. I think a lot of people know that, but then there's like the tried and tested stuff, and that's really what you guys try to stick to. But let me just say that
I don't want this to be a pitch thingy. I have bought you drinks though, so I have bought you out a little bit.
What's that?
I bought new drinks though, and things like that.
Yeah. That's true. We are friends, so I'm biased, but there are good companies out there, and there are bad companies out there. But I can say that I've asked a lot of people who know a heck of a lot about supplements, whether it's their own company or industry analysts or what have you. And basically, when you ask them, what is the most trustworthy supplement? What's the safest supplement? What's the most effective supplement? It almost always comes back to how long has this company been around? How well are they trusted in the marketplace by other companies that have been around for a long time, using research that has been proven, double-blind clinical studies, like you say, as opposed to the stuff that you just like find on a shelf at CVS or the bargain bin at Walmart or, on some random website or whatever. Like the more reputable the sales process and the company's brand, the more likely, and unfortunately, the more expensive it is in a lot of cases. You won't, there's like a threshold, right, where you don't want to dip below into the super cheap territory, because you kind of know that you're not getting the high quality stuff down there.
Right. Unless it's a super cheap ingredient like vitamin D. Yeah. Which you could make the best for a couple bucks.
Sure.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
Just get what you pay for.
Right. So let's talk about the
every time.
The kind of like Cadillac supplements, right? The ones that are predictable and you know what you're getting, compared to the more adventuresome type.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
So an example. So, and also I don't want to, again, we're not the only one. So we've been around 3 years.
Yeah.
And we started out right. And that's cool, because we got invited to, some of these people, like the guy started the Nutrition Business Journal. We're getting invited to shows and to network with other supplement companies that are like 10 times bigger than us.
Yeah.
Because we do it right. And so we've kind of skipped through that networking. So I've met other great supplement companies that are like physician brands.
Mm-hmm.
You know those, and they're really good.
Yeah.
At the scientists at one of the biggest physician brands, and I was like, you gotta be kidding, these guys are geniuses. So I don't want to come across as Real Dose is the only one. That would be like disingenuous.
Sure.
I think we're the only, heavily marketed online, because we are aggressive online marketers. I don't know of any aggressively marketed online kind of, because we're all over the place ad wise. Mm-hmm. And people might look at the way we market and go, ooh, it's kind of cheesy. And I kind of think so myself sometimes. It's always a discussion. Sure. We justify it because we have great product, but we're very aggressive in our marketing. We're the only aggressively marketed one that I know of, but there's more. I think people are getting better and better, but there's a lot of great companies that aren't marketed well that do the same standards as we do.
Yeah.
So I don't want to act like we're the only place to get them.
Sure. But they're usually a lot of those brands, and I recommend some of them myself. Yeah. I use them myself.
You recommend some of the people you recommend are great.
Yeah. And so just so you guys know, I use Designs for Health for a lot of things. Thorn I've used and had success. And then the more like adventuresome ones, Dave Asprey's Bulletproof on it. There are a bunch of companies that are kind of springing up, especially in the more adventuresome territory that might not have been around for a long time. And, you know, the jury's still out on some of the flashier type companies, but I can tell you that just because you see some company online doesn't mean that it's a scam. That's definitely true. But a lot of the scammers ruin it for everyone else because they're using all of these ridiculous claims that no self-respecting person who has their own company that they're marketing would ever say ethically, but or even legally, right? There are things that I know that for me, like when I'm selling information products around like nutrition and exercise, even if people do lose, 5 pounds in 5 days or, 20 pounds in a month or something like that, you can't say that in the marketing explicitly. There are very specific protocols that you need to follow legally. A lot of people don't follow them. And it's the problem is the people who aren't following them, because these tactics work, the people who aren't following them are outselling the people who have the real stuff that's actually helping people. So where are supplements going? I know you have some choice opinions about that. Maybe we can kind of talk about that a little bit too, like personalized medicine, because that's really exciting stuff.
That'll be the end. That is where it's going. But it's going to be.
But so, what about in between? How? What can someone on the other end of this conversation do to make sure that themselves and their family is getting the high quality stuff and that they actually are getting an effect, a positive effect from supplements? Because you can overdo it even like on a very good supplement, and then you're not getting that benefit anymore.
Right. You want the recommended dosage. You got to find out what you want to accomplish first. I mean, obviously online, but really anywhere, the biggest pain is weight loss.
Yeah.
And then probably sexual and pain. But we chose weight loss because it's the biggest pain and we're good at it. But you got to make sure you have the problem and then read the ingredient list and also the way they're presenting the information to make sure that that's at least matching what your pain is. That's the first thing. But as far as like making sure you get what you want, like I like to, I'm a double blind human study guy.
Yeah.
So for the basics, so then there's acceleration, right? And that's what we talk like Dave.
Yeah.
Dave and on it, those guys, they're more for, I want to be, the top 5, half a percentile. I'm going to take over the world and I'm going to be so smart that I can memorize a Sullivan book in 1 second and whatever. Yeah.
Well, so and you have to be ahead of the science when you're playing that game because science is always decades behind the Cowboys
stuff, right? Yeah. It's great because then those people get popular and then researchers will have to study it.
So exactly. Right.
You need people out there kind of taking a risk. So I admire some of them. Again, the ones that are doing it right, it's just hard to tell. But the ones that are doing it right, you admire that because they might be wrong. You doubt they're hurting you, but they're forcing the issue. And so some university is going to have to study it or they're going to have to. Yeah. So that's great. And then I come along on the back end. And so our company is positioned to like, okay, we'll take all that research and we'll take the ones that are proven. So if you're conservative and then you want to make sure that you're getting the claim, and then again, like we'll talk, like even with us, people don't always get the claim.
Yeah.
I mean, if I said we had 100% satisfaction criteria, I mean, we have the refund policy for a year. And that's another indication. Look at the refund policy. Like we give you 1 year on all our products.
Yeah.
And don't ask any questions. So like we figure, so if somebody has something that works, the 60-day crap that's wet or 30 days or do this, do that. No, like we make it easy and people are giving, and there's other companies that do this, but they should give you a year. I just think that should be that should be like a law. Right. Somebody should have a year to find out if they, did they lose it real fast and get it back? Like, does our shit work? Yeah. I think a year and we get returns, sure, because it doesn't work for everyone, or they they read something into what we claimed that we didn't mean to or whatever, and then we try to correct it, whatever. But yeah, even when it's perfect, they don't, so you stand behind what you do. That's another thing to look at is their guarantee. Like, are they actually refunding? And so anyway, so our thing is, if you want to get it, the policy is the garbage in, garbage out. So like at ours, we do formulas, but you have to start with the ingredient, right? So there's ingredients and companies have invested a lot of money in taking the right ingredient from the right place. Right. So it's real important. So let's take, rhodiola is a great example.
Yeah, let's talk about rhodiola. I like rhodiola. Excuse me, rhodiola. I take it all the time. It's one of the very few supplements or herbs or substances that you can take and really feel. You know, it's like kind of like a glowing from the inside out.
Sometimes.
That's true. Yeah, sometimes.
Okay, so the right ingredient means the research done on a plant. So the rhodiola has research, but only from the rhodiola in Siberia.
Right.
Right. And the reason why it's different from rhodiola grown anywhere else is that the ingredient, the plants, the herbs, the reason they're giving you benefit is they're producing compounds called secondary phytochemicals. There's a defense mechanism for the environment they grow in, right? And that's what you're really buying. You're basically usually buying a plant's defense mechanism. That's the thingy that makes it cool. That's the thing that gives the result. So a secondary phytochemicals will be very different in Siberia than it is like in China or wherever. So what happens is people start getting great results. A company with money will come in and say, I'm going to test this. And then they work on extracting it right and not having chemical solvents. So there's all kinds of ways to extract the good stuff from it, the phytochemicals from the herb, that are either safe or not safe, effective or not, and concentrated or not. And also keep the structure, the integrity of it. Because you can screw up the integrity of the herb very easily with the wrong extraction method. So the right ingredient is from we want the ingredient from the exact source where the research comes, the exact same extraction method. So that when I'm going to say, rhodiola or piper betel or whatever does X, or fish oil does X, I'm getting it from the source and the extraction method from which the research came from.
Yeah.
Right. So, because most people don't. So what happens is rhodiola will be all over the news, or green coffee bean will be all over the news, or this or that will be all over the news. Then they go get it from an inferior source. So you're not getting the same thing. So green coffee bean from Madagascar, where we get it from, is very different from green coffee bean somewhere else.
Right. Sure.
It's the wrong ingredient.
Yeah.
And then, how are they extracting it? And then they always do it at a dose, right? So most companies will go, even if they do, most don't get it from the right source. So garbage in, garbage out. And then what they'll do is they'll think you're too stupid to know the research, and they'll put like 1/10 of it in. Because when you're doing this, like we're not out there doing this, we're getting it from reputable ingredient suppliers that we check out that did the science. So you're paying for their science too.
Right.
And so you as a consumer, with us, you're paying for that as well. It's passed on, of course. I mean, so you're paying for the ingredient we're getting, and you're paying for the science behind it. Because they're charging us for that science, which is great. But that's how you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Of course, it's tempting to go get some of these ingredients somewhere else and do that, but we just can't. But you'll find that most people do. Yeah. And that's why they're more affordable, or they don't put the right amount in. Yeah. So that's the simplest way to explain kind of what to look for. Is it the right is it the thing that they're talking about? Is it the right ingredient, and does it does correctly? Yeah. That's the basics. There's a lot more. Then there's all the process, and there's all kinds of stuff beyond that.
With fish oil, that's one of your most popular supplements, right? And so there are, what you find there is all over the place, because that one kind of like caught on and got popular enough that people are trying to take it down now, saying that it causes cancer, which is kind of the life cycle of all these different supplements, right? But like we've been eating fatty fish for a long time, knowing that it's healthy for us. I'm a big fan of cod liver oil. I've been having fermented cod liver oil for years, fish oil as well. And what you find is basically like there's an actual like different type of extraction that you guys have that a lot of good companies have. Not necessarily that it's the 100% best way every time, but a lot of cheaper companies don't, right? And there's the risk of oxidization. There's also, I mean, there's a big difference between getting oil from a healthy fish coming from an environment like the wild with fewer toxins in most cases anyway, than, fish that have been fed turkey feces and living in a tank and injected with antibiotics and soy protein isolate and all sorts of other junk, which is what a lot of times, unfortunately, you're getting from farm fish.
It starts the same way. Like, you want small fish because they're less likely to have toxins. So you get it from anchovies in Peru. So it starts with the ingredient, the fish, right? And then the extraction method. So I don't want to get too much in detail, but
sure. Well, just the styrofoam thing I think is interesting.
Yeah, most of the stuff you find in the store, well, this is even more than that. In order to, fish doesn't naturally, like we have over 80% omega-3s in our fish oil. Fish oil is not naturally 80% omega-3s. It's a combination of that. It's way, 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 way less. That's why, you have to take millions of them if you don't do something. So the easiest way to do that is what's called estrify. I don't want to get in the chemical part, but you do a chemical process, most people do, to purify and then reconstitute to take the omega-3s out and put back in so they can have a higher concentration. And like the big pharma's one, they're like 90%, but it's EE. And it helps you, but it's not in the right form to be absorbed. So you have to have it with food because the natural way it's digested is gone.
Yeah.
And then it's like 70% less absorbable.
Okay.
Right. And God knows what else it does, but that's, again, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's other companies then like Nordic, they're great. They're a great fish oil company. I like Nordic. And they do the extraction, but they actually refat it. They basically put it's called triglyceride form. They put the molecule back in, so it's more absorbable. And they have a great pure product. The next level though, but then the problem is they're still using chemicals to do that. So you have to deal with that. So we use what's called Co2 Extraction Method. And so it's just a low heat, so it's not damaging that way, no chemical way to extract the omega-3s out. So we don't have to refat it or esterify it. We're not using that chemical process to have a pure 80% fish oil.
Yeah.
And so it's basically, so it's picking the right ingredient, doing the right process. And then the problem is, when you have a concentrated fish oil, you're going to have stomach issues if people are sensitive. So then you got to do a coating.
Right.
And then you have to make sure it's all natural. So then you have to choose, okay, there's natural ways to do this, and we want to be natural because our thing is science first and then as natural as we can get. It's our criteria. It's like, we'll go science over natural, but we try to do both. That's kind of our ranking.
Yeah.
I guess if you look at our some people are more natural than science, and that's fine too. Again, nothing against that. That's just our rules for our customers and the way we do it. But there's other people do it the other way around. That's great.
Sure. Just so you guys know, a few of the brands that I use, Gaia is another one that I know we've talked about, like the more natural side of things. My mom's a holistic and homeopathic, and she's been all sorts of different things, but a nurse practitioner as well, and allopathic medicine for a long time. So we've experimented with all sorts of different drugs. I guess I grew up being biohacked upon, which is kind of cool from my mom. So we have a couple of minutes left. Why don't we talk about some of the challenges that come from like everyone being an individual and needing a different amount right now the work is kind of on the individual or the individual plus their practitioner, but where it's going is literally printing your own personalized supplements at home in some pretty cool places. So let's start with what people can deal with now, and then let's kind of have some fun with it.
There'll be no companies there'll be no companies like us. It's funny, it's not in the media, but there'll be no more companies like us.
Right.
Because now with all the genetic testing, people, they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. They're finding out that, and it's not based on race. It's usually be like, you could go, hey, they're raised in this climate. It's not so obvious anymore. We're all mixed anymore. We're all mutts. And hopefully we're more mutt. That's good. Yeah. So we're all these unique genetic profiles. And so I was listening to this Jeff Bland guy. Is amazing. He runs an Institute for Personalized Medicine. The guy's like a genius. That's crazy. You follow him if you can. The guy's amazing. So he went through these stats, and one of them that caught my eye is talking about vitamin D absorption. And like one person, and he's talking about these are Caucasians. It wasn't a black-white thing.
Yeah.
One person might absorb vitamin D at 2,000 times as another person.
Wow.
He went on and on. There's example after example of like how the variance of absorption, this is just the absorption part, let alone like the effect on you.
Right.
I'm just talking about the absorption of certain nutrients.
Yeah.
And they can do some stuff with blood tests now, but it's just not good yet. Like it's going to have to wait till better genetic tests are done, but that's just preliminary data. So eventually you're going to go get a genetic test. And by the way, don't do this now because there are people acting like they're doing this now and they're scammers.
Yeah.
Like we should have a podcast when it's ready 3 years later.
That'll be good.
What happens is you hear this and then, there's companies out there like, we do genetic testing, take this genetic test, and they'll recommend the bullshit. Like I said, there's nobody doing personalized medicine right now. Right. So unless, just go to a physician and work with them directly. Don't fall for that.
Yeah. So personalized medicine, you can get blood tests online, which is pretty awesome. But
quick and dirty.
Yeah.
Do they really know what they're talking about? No.
Right. And they're running, a lot of these companies are running into some pretty serious issues there, right? Because we're almost there, but not quite there to be able to say anything about what your genes.
There's always a guy that takes advantage of fear of uncertainty who will go out early and hurt people, because this is where you could get hurt. So anyway, but it will be true. I can't wait.
Right.
Because you'll be able to go in and get your thing, and then you'll know exactly what to take, and then you go back for like a week and do it over time, have your checkup, and then you'll be able to get your pack sent to you, right? And then more in the future, eventually you'll have like a place in your community that'll have cartridges of ingredients, right? It'll be like the hub.
Right.
And you'll be able to basically get your test set, send it into the hub, and go pick up your supply every day, and it'll print them on demand.
Right.
Right. So basically it'll be like 3D printing. It'll have ingredient cartridges, right? And they'll print them for you. So I doubt you'll have one at home. That'd be a lot of, I can't see that happening. But there'll be like 3D printing hubs of your ingredients for the genetic, and that'll be so, I mean, I can't wait because it'll be neat. There'll be no, like our brand, we'll have to figure out how to play there, but that's where it's going.
Right.
And that'll be just something. And then, because I'm sure right now, because we're relying on double-blind human studies on aggregate. And that's why our results are like this. It's like, we have our 10% of the people that get our product. It's like, it's a miracle. I just can't fucking believe it.
Right.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you get your 10%. We're like, this sucks. You guys lied to me. And why does my stomach hurt? And,
right.
Because it's non-fit, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's why double-blind tests, it's the aggregate. And then we have our, it's very, very helpful. It was helpful, kind of helpful, a little bit helpful, sucks.
Right.
Right. That's the bell curve of adult, you know. So even though we do all the science, that's the reality.
Sure. And so I was talking to Chris Kresser about this too, just about then you have to deal with the placebo effect, which is, you know, a big freaking thing. And anyone who isn't familiar with that, check it out, because just by popping a pill, you know, placebo effect, depending on what you're looking at, can be like 32% a lot of times on average, which means even if you're taking a sugar pill or something with nothing in it, if you think that it's going to have an effect on you, it does, or it does for a lot of people, certain moments, or what have you. But I think, if anything, what that does is, this is the way that I approach it anyway, is like, if I'm taking Real Dose and I trust you because I've looked in your eyes and we've hung out and I know you as a person, kind of like meeting your farmer or whatever. I know that it's supported by science and it's going to do something good for my body. And just by knowing that, it does. But if you're taking a brand that you don't trust, then you lose that effect. And that's why double blind is so important. Can you just explain like what that means?
So when the first, like a blinded experiment, one blind is basically, it's just testing, you know, you're testing against the placebo effect. That's all you're doing. So one person's taking a sugar pill, one person's taking this ingredient. Is it a significant improvement?
Yeah.
Because they all know we're going to get a better result despite somebody giving it to you. The double blind is that the people who are giving you the pills don't even know.
Right.
So there's a lot of influence on people. So if I knew, hey, this is Real Dose sugar, I'd be like, here's your sugar pill. Oh,
right.
So even the people giving you the stuff don't know. And that's a double blind. And that's and that's the best thing ever happened to science. I mean, double blind experiments have saved a lot of lives.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So it tries to take away placebo effect as best they can.
Yeah.
I had friends who were going to sell like La Placebo from France, you know, studied more than any other ingredient.
Right.
Sugar pill safe.
Well, it's crazy because that's the whole ethical thing, right? It's like, and that's the conversation with Chris. A lot of these supplements, a lot of these pharmaceuticals don't, you know, they go through millions and millions of dollars of testing, and then they find that their effect is lower than the placebo effect. And then it's just not a drug, or it's not a supplement, because it's not actually doing anything. But more than anything else, it just demonstrates how powerful the human mind is. And that's, I know, just another interest that we'll have to save for another time for both of us to chat about. But it's, keep in mind throughout all of this that you can't really pull a quick one on yourself. You can't pull a quick one on your brain. Don't like expect to sign up for a $4.95 trial and get some scammy pill and for it to do anything to you. But just quickly before we go, are there any like dangers that people that like pills that actually could hurt people, like ingredients that might be in there that they should definitely stay away from?
Obviously, they look at contraindications like with, you know, grapefruit extract and stuff like that. If you're on meds, it can make the process of, you know, basic stuff. So there's contraindications, and you can take too much of things. Like you take too much fish oil, it thins the blood, so you want to watch out for that. So if you have bleeding issues, but for a person, it's all depending on your issues. Like, so yeah, you got to watch. Those are stuff you kind of read the label for. Yeah. The issues there are a lot. Like the FDA has this thing called CGMP, and that's the basic testing. That'll probably keep you safe. A lot of companies, you'd be surprised, really don't meet it, and they're just kind of waiting to get shut down. Yeah. And then like us, we do like 100 things beyond that, just purity. So you really, more and more research, in our opinion, the toxins, these little toxins that, you know, I think people really didn't think mattered, toxins. And I think over time, like not like you're gonna pop dead because you have some more toxins. Like, because we just go beyond, but over time, I think it can have some neurological issues and some hormonal issues. And that's me talking. I wouldn't, like that's a new area of science. And so we believe that. I believe that. Could I prove it? No. And there's other really smart people who think that's just a bunch of shit. So I'm not going to say I'm right. My viewpoint is, you really want these solvents, these toxins, because these things are manufactured, right? So it costs a lot of extra money to not have those in there and then do extra testing. And then I got to make sure that ingredient person over there in like our green coffee is coming from Madagascar. I got to make sure that's inspected for pesticides. And then another test to make sure they're not lying. And when my manufacturer makes it, we do another test. So we just kind of double test because we just don't want to be a part of, we just think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But then that does add price to your pill. So that's just a choice you make. And whether it matters and you're going to die, I don't think that, unless it's like egregious, which again, very few are going to be egregious. I think over time, the less of that, the better. And I think it's neuro, and my biggest thing that's the brain, and I don't want to do anything to mess up anybody's brain by accident.
Right.
So that's kind of
yeah, exactly.
That's why we do that. So
we're all screwed up enough already.
Yeah, I've talked to people who say that's a bunch of crap, and I'm not a scientist, so from my opinion, is that's real.
Yeah,
so I can't say it is.
Sure. Right. Well, we're out of time, but before we go, why don't we tell folks, Michael, what you're working on now and where they can find you?
Well, we're working on two cool things. The fun thing, it's almost 2 years now. We want to have the best red and purple polyphenol drink ever. And so the idea is you get all these benefits of all these purple and red fruits without all the sugar. Because people, especially people trying to lose weight, if you're healthy and good metabolism, you probably can handle that fruit if you're really active.
Yeah.
But people who are way obese, they just can't. I mean, it's just their insulin response is so bad, they can't handle sugar. So we call it the Grapefruit Dilemma, because you need all the stuff, but you can't have the sugar for a certain point in time. Like you could eat that, you're fine.
Sure.
But it's people a little. There's a certain point where you just can't. So it's you're screwed either way. It's polyphenols can really help, and they can hurt with the sugar. So right now we have a product called Real Reg, which is really good and does the job in a good way. Because we just wanted to get something out, and it's a really high quality, top of breed that we actually work with Design for Health to do. Right. It's a great product, but we wanted the best.
Yeah.
And that's been an adventure. And we have our formula, and we're getting like berries from Alaska. And the whole point is that's the most, you want fruits and stuff from the most hostile climates.
Yeah.
Because the defense mechanisms, right? So these are, imagine being a blueberry trying to survive in Alaska, right? It's like cold, hot, right?
Right.
So these things have no sugar. They're just, all they are is one big defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. So we found a lady, she works with the tribe. So it's just amazing. That's one ingredient. We have 1 million of these, and so we know every supplier and everything. So we have the formula, and this thing's going to have like more polyphenols and 7 servings of like the best stuff you can have. Problem is we can't get it to taste good right now. So, and that's a big part of it because we have this rule with no artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
And then we don't want to add a bunch of sugar, which is the problem we're trying to solve.
Right.
Right.
So is it just like way too tart? How does that usually come out?
It's brutal. There's a lot of tannins, right? There's
right. Yeah, because it's like pure tannins at that point, right?
Yeah. And we got it tasting pretty. So like the last batch we got, and again, this is where the money. We're spending a lot of money in.
Yeah.
And there's people who just do this for a living.
Right.
Right. And that's how you have to find them. And so the last batch was good. Like I gave it to my daughter Piper. She's like, "Oh, Daddy, this is good," but it's not. We know it needs to be great because the things need to be great. So we're super excited about that. That's either going to be out in 2 months or 2 years. I don't know. We can't not taste that.
Right.
So I'm actually more excited about that than anything we've ever done. And
cool.
That's been something, it's been our idea from the beginning, and I think it's our best thing. And I'm proud as hell of that. And as long as it gets to taste good. I don't know what we're going to do if it doesn't. It'd really be disappointing. Because I think it could solve the kid problem too.
Right.
All kids and diabetes, if parents could give them this instead of orange juice. And I mean, this could just change the whole. So anyway, I'm real excited. Hopefully we can make it taste good enough for a kid to want.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the kid part of that. That's really, I have a 9-year-old. I really want kids to have that opportunity.
Right.
And then the other one is like a probiotic. We spent, that's the whole thing. We've hired like 2 of the best probiotic researchers in the world. They're part of the project. And we wanted to have the best probiotic for people with weight issues. We have some really interesting strains coming out that nobody's seen that he's actually been working on himself. He's got him Brad. He's amazing.
Cool.
And then we also doing something different with the prebiotic to make the probiotic go that nobody's ever done. That again, and so that one's pretty much formulated and we're just working out the details of the delivery mechanism so that nothing get contaminated, because you have to be really careful with probiotics. We're working on like how to separate the prebiotics from the probiotics so that the moisture doesn't get into so all those. So that's formulated too, except for getting it to work.
Yeah.
So we have two things, like this. So I'm pretty pumped about that. More pumped about the reds, but the probiotic I think will be crazy good too.
Right.
And that's the exciting part of this business actually, is if I could just do this part, all day and mess around there. And my partner, Dr. Steve, does 3 times the work I do on this. He should probably be talking about this, because I just go, do this. And he's out there he's the one out there meeting everybody. So Dr. Steve Siskin's one of our business partners, and he's the one that's really, I shouldn't even be taking credit, because he's the one out there doing all this. Yeah. And he reports back. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
So
that's a good guy too. Exciting. And what about your podcast? You have a podcast coming out soon too, huh?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, working on that one. Well, just so you guys know,
Dr. Steve's going to have one. You're going to teach Dr. Steve how to do a podcast.
Cool. Right on.
So no podcast yet. Well, maybe you'll launch it for us, but no, we're not. We got a lot. We're so busy doing all this. It's hard to do some of that.
Right, chasing blueberries around Alaska and stuff. Awesome. Well, Michael, this has been awesome. I think a lot of people out there have hopefully learned a lot. If you guys have questions about this show, actually, it would be great if you could just look up
feedback.
Yeah. Let's get some feedback. Let us know what you think. If you have any other questions about the industry, I know that Michael would be happy to help. Just look up Michael Lovich or Real Dose at fatburningman.com. You'll find this blog post. You could leave some comments there. Obviously, social media, Facebook, Twitter, if you catch this when it comes out. But yeah, it'll always be there at fatburningman.com. Michael Lovich, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we'll have to have you come back for all sorts of different reasons. We could have a lot of conversations.
Sure.
So thank you so much for coming on.
All right, no problem.